You need truth and life. Here is the Brother Leon Show. You better recognize.
What's going on, listeners? This is your boy, Brother Leon. You are tuning into another episode of the Brother Leon Show. I want you guys to know and understand that this is the time for us to pray, to put our faith in action, to get out here and know that this country will not be given over to systemic racism and institutionalized racism. So the one thing you got to understand that when you see through the eyes of the oppressed, there are those who will ignore the pain and yet feel as though that they are the answer to everything. If we can stop the looting, if we can stop all of this, then we will have done our jobs. You got to understand and know that this was not just about George Floyd. This is about years and decades of not being heard. This is a result of peaceful protesting and still not being heard. You got to understand and know that white America has ignored and even been blind to the fact of the atrocities that have happened to black people and people of color. Back in Martin Luther King's time, white people, when you polled them, they thought that everything was good. And the reason why you think that everything is good is because it's not happening in your house. Martin Luther King didn't become a threat until he started talking about equality. Because he wanted to see all men free and he wanted to level out the playing field. But some people do not want the playing field leveled. And there are some people out here right now, like I told you on my podcast, like I told you on the latest podcast, the fivefold of racism. So you got to understand and know, man, that some people just want to see the world burn, and that there are white supremacists that are hoping that they can do the move or be the one that starts the whole thing. Because I'm going to tell you, man, it's time for us to wake up. Because while some people were out buying toilet paper, other people were out buying ammunition. And so you got to see the time in which we live. Because there was a time, and this is why I talk about the church, because it started with us. It started with us. When you look at, even after the day of Pentecost, there was still racism in the church. There was still segregation, widows being neglected, but we are supposed to have all things in common, going house to house. And then Stephen preached about it, and they killed him. So I want you guys to know is that sometimes even in the midst of speaking truth to power, that power will begin to be angry. It will be agitated because you tell them about their sin. You tell them about the history. And then when they kill you, whether that is reputation or kill your body, they will be thinking that they are doing God's service. Like what is getting ready to happen right now? Our president pretty much called martial law on the whole country to stop the looting. But the crazy thing about it is that where were the laws in place to stop the injustice? District attorneys, prosecutors, where were the laws to stop this? Because this came in on your watch, but you decided to ignore it because you were more concerned about protecting the police who are the boots on the ground. And so you take and turn an eye away. Let them get away and your career is safe. Because everybody needs the FOP. Everybody needs the police. And if you go against the FOP, if you go against the cops, if you start prosecuting rogue cops, then it's a slap in the face to all cops. I don't believe that it is. And I thoroughly believe that there needs to be legislation put in place that if a cop is found guilty of killing a man, an unarmed man, and you have violated that man's civil rights and human rights, then that cop, he should definitely have civil lawsuits. He should be able to lose his pension because of that. And I just like what Dick Gregory said. Do you love your babies more than you hate me? Because that's how it's going to stop. When they have to come out their pockets, then it's going to stop. But as long as they have carte blanche, as long as they can have the excuse of, I was in fear for my life, it's never going to stop. It's never going to stop, because we see how racism is. It's taught. It's poured in. And you have those who recruit, and you have those who teach, and you have those who strategize, and you have those who are prophets in white supremacy. They get a word from the God of white supremacy. They get a word from history. So you got to understand and see the system that these people think that they do God's service, just as they thought that they did God's service by putting slaves in chains, by putting black bodies in chains, by killing them, by lynching them, thinking that they do God's service. And all of these were good Christian men upon a Christian nation, but yet drenched in blood, thinking that you do God's service. So I want to read a scripture to you. I'm not going to be long on here today, but I just want you guys, man, just look at the news, and you got to begin to pray. Activists, I want to tell you this. Ministers, I want to tell you this. You make sure that if you cannot go out and actually physically protest, and I understand it, some of you need to be watchful, because there are those who are going to point you out and try to get you, because here it is. All it takes is something to break out, and then in the midst of commotion, they single you out and do you harm. And because of the commotion, because of the uproar, nobody will be able to pull you out. So you got to get to the place where you are wise enough and you understand the game, because this game is about chess, and they trying to take every piece off the board. We are fighting for injustice in the midst of a pandemic. And the crazy thing about it, I pray to God that a second wave does not hit, because since there have been openings, everybody has got relaxed. Nobody's wearing a mask. You can't afford to get that relaxed. And so if it means doing things a different way, do it a different way. Because at the end of the day, you have to come home to your family. I'm going to repeat what I said. At the end of the day, you have to come home to your family, because your family, if God forbid something happens, they're going to be the only ones who can tell your story. Because I'm going to tell you, even though we may be out here in the trenches together, your family is the only one that can really tell who you are. In the trenches, you're an ally. You're an asset. But sometimes I'm going to tell you, man, we don't have the mindset of true soldiers at times. We will leave people behind for the sake of preservation. And fear will make you run. It's either fight or flight. And I get it. But you got to get to the place where I'm not going to give into the fear, but I'm going to make sure I come home. And I'm going to do those things which I need to do, because not only do we need to protest, we need to go to the city gate. We need to go to our government offices. We need to see the voting record of those who call themselves fighting for our community or representing our community, because some of them, they may say that they fight, but they do nothing, even with the church. Even with the church. And I am very vocal on pastors who lead multicultural congregations and white congregations, but yet do not address the problems in black communities. Very vocal. I'm very vocal of people of faith and want to say that this is a faith thing, but it's all about principle. It's all about principle. So, My thing is that if we could talk about abortion and not talk about this is a problem. If we could say we need to pray for our president, but not even mention the fact or even call the fact that there is a problem with racism in the church, and be afraid to say white supremacy, and be afraid to say white privilege and white fragility, and not talk about those issues, then we have a problem. Because if you want reconciliation and unity, you have to recognize something. You cannot be blind to issues. And I said on my Facebook post, how can we call ourselves seers and not see? And that is my indictment to the prophetic voice, because there are some senior and seasoned white prophetic voices, but yet silent on issues like this. They're waiting for it to blow over, but yet want to tell you send money to Israel. But they will never tell you support Black Lives Matter. They will never take their resources and go to where the problem is. They're like the Pharisees that walked past the man who was laying on the side of the road in the parable of the Good Samaritan. So you cannot be angry when you have different groups who go to where the problem is, and they end up picking up the man. They end up pouring in the oil and the wine. And that man is forever grateful, and he is forever loyal, and he will be your soldier because you came to where he was. And this is the thing that gets me. We choose to cherry pick our witness. We choose to cherry pick how we do outreach. You could do outreach in the midst of a protest. You can witness in the midst of a protest. But yet we want to cherry pick and say, this is not our fight. It is your fight. Because trust and believe, it is your fight when you offer people salvation, but do not even give them the means to change their thinking, because people can still be racist after salvation. And to sit up here and to believe that all things will be settled when we get to heaven, these people might not even make heaven if their minds are not changed. Because there are people who said, Lord, we prophesied in thy name. We cast out devils in thy name. And then God said, depart from me, ye worker of iniquity. I never knew you. And his response will be, but Lord, I was saved. I got saved. So my question is still, do we leave people at salvation? I say no. We walk them through, because there not only is an initial step to salvation, there is also a continual salvation. Our minds need to be renewed, because the gifts and the callings of God are without repentance. You can be a prophet, an apostle, a pastor, a teacher, an evangelist. You can be a deacon. You can have administrative gifts and still be racist. Just like you can still be a pastor and still be a whoremonger. Just like you can still be a prophet and still be a homosexual. And still cheat on your wife. Or cheat on your partner. However you want to call it. That is why the mind needs to be renewed. Because the Bible says, be ye renewed in the spirit of your mind. And until your mind is renewed, your life will not change. Because the goal is to see Christ in us, Christ in you, your hope of glory. The goal is to become a disciple. And how can we call ourselves disciples when we do not have love towards another? Because if you have racism in your heart, how can you love? How can you truly effectively love? When you see your black brother or your brother of color as a stain, as a sin, as less than, and you feel that you are superior, and yet you justify labeling him, you justify murdering him, and you think you do it in the name of God. So this is why we fight. This is why the church needs to confess its part, because we put more value on animals than we do people. And that is a problem. We will come to a dog's rescue faster than we come to a black man's rescue. Seriously. And the crazy part about it, I'm not against dogs or animals. But you got to understand and see what they represented back in the 60s, what they represented back in slavery times. To the slave, to the black man who grew up with dogs being sicked on him, that dog don't mean nothing to him except terror and pain. But yet, it's twisted how we can value our pets more than people. And there has to be a change even in that. And I'm not, yes, we do have to speak up for animals, but we need to speak up more for people than animals, because there are some people out here who act just like animals. So, John chapter 16, and I'm coming out of verse 1. These things have I spoken unto you, that you should not be offended. Now, Jesus spoke this, and he said, look, I'm going to tell you the truth, and I don't want you to be offended. I don't want you to be turned away. They shall put you out of the synagogues. Yea, the time cometh that whosoever killeth you will think that he do God service. So they're going to put you out of church because they feel as though that what you're saying isn't relevant. It messes with our white fragility. And you are causing division amongst the brethren. So when you speak truth like this, when you hear speeches like Tamika Mallory's, you feel as though that is not the spirit of God. But the crazy part about it is that how is it if that we are called to loose the bands of wickedness, to undo the heavy burdens, and to let the oppressed go free? How is it we are blind to the oppression? How is it that we cannot see through the eyes of the oppressed and ignore their cry, and then have the audacity to say or to even judge and give them the notion that they should respond this way or another way? But yet we have ignored them for years. You can't sit up here and tell a black person how to respond when you're not black. Seriously. You can't sit up here and say that the looting is pointless and that it needs to stop when you haven't said anything about the injustice, nor have you walked in a black person's shoes. I dare any white man in his 40s and 50s to walk 1 year in current conditions in a black man's shoes who's in the age of 20 to 40. And then we'll have that conversation. Because you could talk about being poor, you could talk about being Irish, but your white skin protects you still, and it insulates you. You've never been born a stigma. But being born black, sometimes a stigma has come with it. It has come with it all the way from slavery times. You got to understand that the fight for injustice is a constant struggle. And that's a book that you need to read by Angela Davis. Justice is a constant struggle, if I pronounced it right. But it's a book by Angela Davis that you need to read. It's a whole lot of books that we need to read. Matter of fact, the next book I'm getting right now is called White Fragility. Because I want to understand, why is it that when you bring up these type of conversations that people get upset? They feel as though that you are attacking them. But I understand it's them devils. It's them devils that make you so fragile. I'm like, how is it you can be bold and have a tough skin in one area, but when it comes to areas like this, you are so fragile? Like Dave Chappelle said, you got a brittle spirit and ready to cancel everybody. I'm serious. I'm surprised ain't nobody started trying to talk canceling me. But, it is what it is. I'm going to keep going, man. I'm not going to be silent. You could troll me all day long on social media, but I will not shut up. I'm going to tell you how it is, how I see it. And I'm going to tell you the truth, man. You can't sit up here and talk one way and then walk another way. I'm telling you, black and white. Just because you black don't mean you my brother. Just because you white don't mean you right. I got to see your fruit, baby. I got to see your voting record. And that's just honesty and safety on my part. You know, you just ain't going to sit up here and tell me, ooh, I'm good. No. No. I got to see this for myself. So let's go back. They shall put you out of the synagogue. Yea, the time cometh that whosoever killeth you will think that he doeth God service. So you have to look at our president and the symbolism behind it. Why walk to the church? Why walk from the White House to a church and hold up a Bible? That intel means that he is going to do whatever is necessary, whether it be martial law, to stop the turmoil that's going on in the country. So if it means that he's going to invoke war powers on American soil, then he's going to do it by any means necessary. And he believes that he is doing God's service. So why do you think that he opened up the churches and now stands in front of a church with a Bible? So my question is, black pastors, you need to get with him. You need to get with him and tell him that this is not the way. That this is not the way. Somebody needs to stand up and have a voice. One of you need to stand up and have a voice. Because the crazy part about it, whose people are going to be getting killed? Black and brown bodies. Black and brown bodies getting killed by frustration. Black and brown bodies getting killed by hatred. Black and brown bodies getting killed just because. Getting killed by police, getting killed by National Guard, getting killed by anarchists. Getting killed being caught in the crossfire. Nobody ever talks about friendly fire. But yet, the fire in our country has gone on for so long. And then you want to get mad at the rage. You want to get mad at the fact that people are now like, you know what? I don't care. Fuck it. I don't give a... I'm serious. When people get to the place where they say, fuck it, I don't give a fuck, you got something on your hands, baby. And forgive me for my profanity this morning, but you know what I mean. You know what I mean. You're like, all right. Oh, okay. So you know what I mean. So I'm telling you, people have gotten to the place where they seen it. I grew up with Rodney King, and it's still going on. It was sickening with Eric Gardner, and it was sickening with George Floyd. It was sickening with Tamir Rice. The crazy part about it, man, I want to find out what is the machine that controls the smear campaign. Who controls the smear campaign? Because when it comes to white cops and black bodies, the black bodies get the smear campaign. But when it came to a black cop and a white woman, there was no smear campaign at all. You need to look that case up. Because I'm going to tell you, if justice does not do what it's supposed to do concerning this case, and they arrest all those cops involved, you're going to see something that you don't want to see. It's going to be the type of revival that nobody wants to be a part of. It ain't going to be the one you praying for. And so I'm going to tell you, keep praying. But when it's time to vote, vote. When it's time to get out here and start checking people's records, you check them records. You do the things that you need to do, man. You put feet under your prayers. You put your faith in action, because I'm tired of seeing so many Christian people. They are spiritually minded, so spiritually minded that they are dead when it comes to their own communities. They will sit in that daggone church house all day, but won't even go down to City Hall. Won't even go to the PTA meeting. So we got to begin to wake up, man, and be better. You can't sit up here and talk about black on black crime. You ain't even willing to get out here and help the black community. And black on black crime ain't nothing but a myth. Crime is about proximity. It's never been about black on black. It's about proximity. And you have more white people killing more white people, but you never hear white on white crime. You never hear Asian on Asian crime. You never hear Hispanic on Hispanic crime, but it's mainly in the media. And it's always projected towards black people as to give the narrative that if the black people would fix themselves, then this will not happen. We've been told that for years. If we will fix ourselves, if we will be educated, if we would have our own businesses and own money, if we would be religious, if we would be in the military, if we would get ourselves out of our hoods, which pretty much says that it's something wrong with where we are and the people around us and where we're born, then we wouldn't have to worry about racism. And that in itself is a lie. It is a lie to say that. It is a lie. I'm going to tell you right now that is a lie from the pit of hell. And it goes along with the fact of self-hatred. Self-hatred has been put on black people and people of color for years. Black people getting to the place where they bleaching their skin. Black people getting to the place that now they want blonde hair. And I'm not trying to say there's nothing wrong with blonde hair. But the fact that you cannot even hardly see the beauty in yourself and in your culture, it's a problem. It's a problem when a black baby thinks that the black doll baby is ugly and the white baby doll is pretty. She's learned how to hate herself. She can't see the beauty in herself. Because black has always been labeled ugly. Black has always been labeled by negative stereotypes. And we have got to get rid of the stereotype when they can call us super predators, when they can call us thugs, but yet protect and insulate white supremacy and white violence. There's good people on both sides. Charlottesville. So, I'm telling you, man, we are in the fight of our lives. And let's go down to the next one. And these things will they do because they have not known the Father nor me. And that's what Jesus was saying. They're going to put you out. They're going to mislabel you. They're going to judge you. They're going to say that you're causing division. But they will do all of these things because they have not known the Father nor Jesus. Because I want you guys to know that Jesus was the one that turned over the tables. He was the one that pushed them out of the synagogue because he got tired of seeing the merchandise that was in the temple, the money changers that was in the temple, and he flipped over their monies and beat them with a whip and chased them out the church. Years, black people and people of color have been merchandised by the church and by the white church in particular. For years, they have been merchandised by the evangelicals. For years, they have been merchandised. When we can say, yo, let's send money to Israel, but not support the black community. We'll give them Jesus, but that's it. But we're not going to deal with the problem. We're not going to talk about it. We're not going to say it. But all things will be resolved when we get to heaven. That is so much bullcrap in itself. You want to give me a half salvation. You want to give me a half deliverance. You want to give me a half healing and then expect for the rest of my life to be okay. No, you are part of the problem, sir, madam. So something has to give. Something definitely has to give. So, listeners, I know that we are in our series 91 Psalms for 91 days. And so far, I've been doing stuff that has not been that. But this is where my heart is right now. I promise you, we will definitely get back to that. But right now, we are in a state of emergency. So I want you guys to know and understand that, see the handwriting on the wall. Because what we're in right now is the beginning of sorrow. So you keep your sons and your daughters safe. You have that conversation about race, about police. You have that conversation about, don't get caught up in the protest. Just don't go down with people, that you don't know. Don't just get caught up out here, because it's easy to get caught up. It's easy. You could go along with your friends and you thinking that it's one way and it's something else. It turns out totally something different. It goes left. And the next thing you know, they're looking at your son, your daughter, but that other person totally skips away. And now you got a son or a daughter that could potentially be harmed or be arrested. So we got to have wisdom. I'm not saying give in to the fear, but I want you to have wisdom. And like I always say, we're getting ready to be done. Have faith, but don't be stupid. It's your boy, Brother Leon. Peace.
Walk in the truth that makes you free every day. Follow Brother Leon on all social media outlets.